I'm excited. This is actually a really large group. Those of you who signed up for this course early, thank you for doing that. And I am sorry it's not live in the lab. The department made the decision to switch to virtual just a few weeks ago to see if we could get more people to sign up, and it worked, and that's great. And I'd rather have a class full of students and see your faces on screen if that's how it's got to be. So I'll introduce myself. I am Jen. I am your instructor for this course. A little bit about me. I have been a commercial artist and graphic designer for 16 years. I do this professionally. This is my job as well as teaching this course. So I am here for you if you have interest in anything beyond, this course. If you're interested in the field of graphic design, I'm a great resource for you. You can ask me anything. That being said, I know this course you probably have a broad range of skill levels, and we try to make it work for each of you and help you develop in your own individual way throughout the semester. I already took roll. Does anyone have any questions for me about me or anything like that? If you want to know anything more about me, I try to make my class, also just telling you ahead of time, introvert friendly, because I know it can be really scary to show what you make and talk about it in front of people. So I do try to be really courteous of that. That's why I have a questionnaire instead of making you each come up and tell me a fun fact about yourself. But if you are an extroverted person and you like to talk, feel free to insert yourself in the conversation during class. That being said, the chat is really useful too. I really love the chat during critique because students are quick to give feedback and say things about each other's work in the chat right away. And so that's always a great resource to have too, which we don't actually have in a classroom setting. So there's pros and cons to being virtual. I am going to start by just going over some of the information in Canvas with you all. And then we'll do a quick lecture just about general information about this course. And then we're going to do a lesson today. And so that's what we're going to cover today. And we will be Zooming once a week for the class. And it'll be a combination of lecture and information and how to, and I do a lot of screen sharing and walking you through how to do things as well. Any questions now? Stephanie, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, so a question for this course. So are we going to be doing things like, I know since it's graphic design stuff, like things for social media, because I know that's like a new form of media, and are we going to be doing stuff like designing around those kinds of platforms?
Yeah, so let me share the course calendar. Well, first, yes, and I will get into that as I'll go through the course. Anyone else have a question? No? Okay. I always look at the hand raised thing. Oh, Mel.
Are you going to, while we're in lecture, I guess, are you ever going to want us to have concurrent access to the programs at the same time? So if you were to go, well, this is how you do this thing, now I want all of you guys to try it, is that something you're going to want for us to do as well?
So that's a great question, because I know a lot of one of the struggles every semester, because we're not in a lab setting on the same computers, is each person's individual system being able to run what we're doing. So if you are not on a computer where you can concurrently run Zoom and your Adobe programs at the same time, just follow along. I do record every Zoom and I post it after class. So theoretically, if you wanted to go to my YouTube page and watch last semester, I don't know why you would want to do that. It would make this semester weird, or maybe you do, I don't know, but you can, those are still up there and you theoretically could go start watching each week ahead of time. But I do change things up as we go. And like I said, this class is really tailored to each class skill level and what you're capable of doing. And sometimes I do shift things up mid-semester. if things aren't really working or we need to spend more time in a certain area, this could all shift and kind of adapt. So with that, I will jump into sharing the course. I'm going to screen share here. So if you cannot operate Zoom and your Adobe things at the same time, it will be recorded and you can follow along and watch what I'm doing later. But it's also really useful if you are able to, like if you can Zoom on a different device and use your computer to follow along, because then you can do everything in real time and you can stop and say, I didn't know, I didn't catch that, or ask questions. I do find that if you're just watching what I'm doing, you feel like it makes sense, and then you go to do it and it's like, you get stuck. So I'm also available for questions. In the past, some classes have started Discord channels for this course because they like that method of communication. I do have discussion boards for the class in Canvas if you like using that. I have never had students actually use them, but they are there for you. Most of the students prefer to use Discord or some other channel to communicate with each other if you need help from each other. And then if you need help from me, you can email me at any time. That's the long answer to that question. So I'm going to screen share here, and I'm going to go into student view just to make sure. I don't know how many times I have discussed something and then realized it wasn't published. So student view, just make sure I can see exactly what you all see. So in Canvas here, you will see there's course information, and then each week will be broken up and there will be a module for each week. So the class calendar will outline, I don't actually use the calendar here. The stuff that's due and has due dates will pop up over here, but this is just a rough outline of what we'll be doing each week. So you can get a feel for the course and what will be coming up. So you'll see here, this is week 1. We just do an introduction to visual communication. If there's an assignment or a project, I'll list it here, and then I will put the Zoom meeting. Most Zoom meetings are mandatory. There'll be weeks where I won't make it mandatory and there might be a discussion board instead. So every week I will announce how you have to get attendance. So if you're going to miss a class, make sure you email me. Even though everything is posted for you to review later, attendance is mandatory, whether it's on Zoom or through a discussion board. And if it's a discussion board, you have like a full week to get your attendance. And so week 2, it'll have a different topic, and these topics are designed to build upon each other. So as we go through the course, you get more and more advanced in your skill set. So we really start off with a lot of theory and principles of design, and then we build into how to actually use certain programs. And all of your skills will start to be combined as we get down into things like layout design. And then you'll see here, week 11, it's at the very end. I do cover digital design for social media and web elements. You'll start to learn to answer, it was Stephanie's question. You'll figure out as we get there that designing for social media is really about knowing size. So it's like simple technical things like learning how to size graphics properly, which will start right into the second week. And then just combining all these skills like color theory, typography. So by the time you get here, you'll realize you actually know how to do a lot of this. Like you can design for social media, you can design a web page if you want to, and you'll be surprised how those skills build up on each other. So if you want to know what we'll be doing, check out the course calendar. And if I go back to the modules here, class connections, these are the discussion boards that I was talking about. And I have a Q&A forum and a class cafe. So like I said, I've never had students use these. They usually email me with questions, or they've created a Discord channel and they use that to talk with each other about this course. So if something like that, how many of you use Discord? I can't actually see all of you or the chat because of how my screen is set up, but I see a couple of thumbs up. So if you like Discord and someone would like to take that, volunteer to take that role and make a Discord channel for this class, let me see, then you can do that. And we can use that as a way we communicate and ask questions to each other as well. Back to the modules. So the Zoom link will always be the same, and it's right here if you ever need it or lose it. And then I just have a lot of design resources. So as I mentioned, I do have a YouTube channel. I put all these classes on the YouTube channel, as well as individual lessons, and then just some general tips and tricks. So if you want to go watch more than what we're doing this week, you are welcome to. But if you just want to chill, and I will be feeding you what you need to know as we go along. If you are super new to this stuff, there are some resources that you should check out. And then I like everyone to know, if you struggle with your tech, like if your computer is running slow or you can't get the programs on your computer, there are resources on campus to help you with this. You can actually use Adobe Creative Cloud for $20 a year through CSUB, so you could purchase it here. If you don't want to do that, there's actually virtual lab access as well, where you don't have to purchase it. And then you can always use the digital media lab or the computer labs on campus. So there are resources available to you if you don't have access to a solid computer at home. And I will tell you now, I've had students really struggle through this course by trying to do this entire course on a tablet. The Adobe software is not the same. It's not the same as using it on a desktop. So if you don't have a laptop or you don't have a computer system, you might want to plan accordingly to use the lab or figure something out, because you can really force your way through it, but it's going to get harder and harder as we go on. The programs are just a little bit different, and they're not as easy to use. You also probably want to get an actual mouse. So if you have, a trackpad, you might be really comfortable with that. I just find like a mouse so much easier to use. It's easy to forget how physical this actually is. And so I try to be real clear about what I'm doing with my hands while I'm doing stuff, because it is kind of a learning curve, like drawing would be, where it's a lot of my muscle memory and just like physical, like tapping and moving of the mouse and things like that. So if you're using a trackpad and you have to like hold that button and like just slide around, it can be difficult. And again, this all is based on your skill level and what you're comfortable with. It's really flexible, but those are just some things to be aware of when you start. Okay, so week 1, this is our introduction to visual communication. I do have this here. If you're new to Adobe Illustrator, start here. These 2 videos are just going to walk you through some super basic things, like how to open up a document and just getting familiar with the different tools in Illustrator. So you can watch those. And then let's see. Any questions about, I didn't go over the syllabus. Are you all comfortable with reading that? Do you want me to go over the syllabus? Yeah, okay. I don't think I need to go over that, but if you have any questions, the syllabus is up there. Feel free to email me. Any questions about the course itself as a whole? Stop screen sharing for a minute. No? Okay. If I go back to screen sharing, I screen share a lot. Obviously, this is like a technical based course, so I want to show you lots of things I'm doing on my screen. But when I'm watching you over here, so that's why I'm always looking over here. Sometimes I'll move you to the top, and then you're all filed into this little line. So sometimes I just have to turn off screen sharing. Okay, so this week is our introduction to visual communication. You all signed up for this graphic design class. Power of double monitors. Yeah, then I would still just be like, and hopefully it's because you're interested in graphic design. I will say this right now. I love graphic design. It's my favorite thing. I get really excited about it. And I'll say things like every week, I'll be like, this week is so fun. Like, I think this stuff is fun. We have yet to determine maybe if you think it's fun. But I do think that what we're going to learn is really fun, and I get really excited about it. And so I love teaching this stuff to you all. So we're going to just start out this week with an introduction to what graphic design is. I will pull up that lecture in a moment. I made this little video, if any of you haven't watched it, just to introduce myself. we're not going to watch it together. I have a general rule that I hardly ever rewatch anything I record because I don't like watching myself. So, but I like making content to share with the students. So I do that. Okay. Adobe Creative Cloud software. I've repeated this here because it's really important that you get this software on your computer. You can get by this class, like you don't have to do the lesson in real time along with us, but by next week, you're definitely going to need this software. We start out in Illustrator, and then the following week, we will be working in all 3 programs, Photoshop, InDesign, and Illustrator. So you want to get those 3 programs on your computer. There is a bunch of other stuff in Adobe Creative Cloud, but those are the 3 main programs we're going to focus on this semester. And then I repeat virtual lab and resources. Okay, so each week I will also give you a weekly task list just so you know what you're supposed to do this week. We're already doing number 1. Yay. Got that done or in process. And then I will do the PowerPoint. I call week 1 a PowerPoint every week, but this is actually just a PDF because I made it in Keynote as one of the first things. There's also a survey I would love for you to take. A couple people had already taken it when I checked before class, and I forgot to put name as one of the questions. So I added that. If you were one of the first 3 people, I won't know exactly who those answers belong to. So if you want to go take it again, great. If not, I'll figure it out. It's more information that I want to know about you all as a whole. And the Discord link has been added there, so that's awesome. And I like to know each class session because this is the one design class that we offer at CSUB. So some of you might have had, design classes in other places before, and some of you might be brand new. And that's okay. I just like to know where your skill level is at so I can help each of you with your own individual growth. So this class really can be what you want to make of it. And if you want more of a challenge, make sure you let me know. And if you're like, I'm barely getting this done, that's okay too. Effort goes a long way with me in this course. But at the same time, I always, we do the first lesson and you'll see when we get there, I tried to switch it up again this semester because I've tried this lesson a couple different ways in past semesters, and I'm always missing the mark on whether it's too easy or too hard. And then sometimes I make it a little too structured, but I like to throw you in there and make you use this program right off the bat to see how you like it. So if at any point ever you are like about to cry, stop. Because these are things that I've been told. Oh my gosh, I was crying. This was so hard. Stop, send me an email. Don't push through on a project if you were having that much trouble with it or you're that upset. That means there's something that you're missing that I could probably watch you do and fix it for you like that. You should never be at the point of tears. It shouldn't be that difficult for you. And if, I do have students tell me they'll spend hours on projects because I'll get students that are perfectionists. I'll get students that are really just trying to do a certain thing. And if you are willingly spending like 8+ hours on a project because you want to make it a certain way, that's totally up to you and that's fine. If you are spending more, like if you're spending 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours on one of these projects because you don't know how to do it, again, stop and email me. And that kind of puts another topic that I like to bring up. I like to run this class like it's a working design studio. So in my field, when I'm working on something, I do revisions constantly. So the process is I get a project from a client, and while I'm kind of riffing, so I'm going to turn off screen sharing. So I'll get a project from a client. I'll do that project based on the specs that they give me, and I will send it to them for approval. It's not always approved right off the bat, right? So, I mean, sometimes it is, and that's great, but I would say the times a project is approved immediately is much rarer than me doing a set of revisions. At any point in this course, if you get a grade that you're not happy with, or you'd like to redo a project because you feel like you learned more and you could do better, you are able to do that. So we have a timeline and there will be due dates. you will lose a few points, and I'll show you the grading rubric for the first assignment. So you will lose points for late work, but you can make up your assignment at any time, and you can redo assignments based off of the grade that you want to get. So you don't have to take everything as a first shot and final grade. You can redo these up until the last week of the course when your finals are due and grades are going in. You have time to redo all your assignments if you want to. That's your option. And then also, I also like to say this, because I like this to be more of like a working design studio relationship. You can feel free to call me Jen. I know a lot of you will call me professor. That happens every semester because it just feels weird to call me something else. But my college professors told me this too, and we just called them by their first names. And so that's what you can do with me, and you can feel free to call me Jen, and you don't have to call me professor or Mrs. or something like that. You can just use my name. So that being said, any questions there? Okay. I will jump back to screen sharing. Actually, I think that we are good. I'm looking at the list. Oh, I will go over one more thing. So here, so survey, we're zooming now, do the survey, install Adobe Creative Cloud, complete assignment 1, which I will do in a little bit. I'm going to do the lecture first. And then next week, I want you to have something with you to do a little lesson that we're going to do. So next week, we'll be learning about principles and elements of graphic design. So during our class, we're going to do a really quick, easy lesson on composition. So you'll want to have some like little items with you, whatever's available to you. You can get rocks out of your yard, you could get leaves, just something that will be little pieces. I say here, blank pieces of white paper and a flat surface and a contrasting color. So you want to make sure that you can see whatever it is you're going to use, but you can literally use anything. You can use Skittles, you can use leaves, it can be anything. Just make sure you have something, because we're going to do a quick lesson on composition with that. So that's for next week. All right, so with that, I'm going to roll into this lecture here. Let me look at my list. I'm not a linear thinker, so I make myself notes every time because I will get on a tangent and then forget to go back. So, okay. Does everybody have, stop screen for a second. Does everybody have something they can write with and write on today? Like a piece of paper or something? It can even be a tablet. Okay. Just giving you some time while I do this lecture. If you do not have pen, pencil, or a piece of paper and you need a minute to go grab that, do that now. And I'm going to jump into our lecture, which is right here, and it will be an intro to visual communication. Make this a little bit bigger. Like I said, I call it a PowerPoint here. If you click on that link, it'll pop up. But it was originally made in Keynote, and then I switched to PowerPoint. So same content. As a graphic designer, I'll also say I don't like PowerPoint. I don't use PowerPoint. I don't use Word. I don't use anything in Microsoft, and I barely know how to. So you're probably going to look at any PowerPoint I ever show you and be like, oh man, she really doesn't like do a lot with these. I don't use it. It's just a way of me to be able to click through and give you information. So a PDF sometimes works just as well. All right. So what is graphic design? Graphic design is all of these things and more. So it can be things like typography, and it can be illustration. It can be those elements that actually make up your design. And it also is things like being creative. It's being able to organize and solve problems. So it's solution driven. And that's what I love about graphic design. Rather than it just being like pure creative art form, there's a little bit of problem solving, and it's very diverse and ranging, and you get to use a lot of different creative elements to be a graphic designer. So here is a textbook definition of graphic design. It's the process of visual communication and problem solving through the use of typography, photography, and illustration. The art and skill of combining text and pictures, and graphic design is everywhere, encompassing the means through which most written language is transmitted. So I tell people this every semester, literally everything around you is design. You could probably just reach out and grab something right now, and some designer decided exactly how that was going to look and how that was going to be written and how whatever object it is going to be communicated. I picked up this SD card. Somebody had to decide how big, I don't know if you can see it, the 128 was going to be, how this information was. Like, everything has a designer's hand on it, from cups to food and packaging and things like magazines and books. All of that had to be designed by somebody. So good design is a skill. And I like to emphasize this. It gets its own slide because I think a lot of us are programmed to think that anything creative or art related is a talent, and that is not true. You can absolutely develop your skills through the course of the semester and over time, and it's something that you can practice at and get better at. So don't feel like you're not naturally creative or you're not naturally artistic and that's the end for you. It's something that you can build and become better at as we learn more and more about it. So this is also something I think is important to distinguish here. Let me actually take up, there we go. So design and art are two different things. They work together and we use both of them in the field of graphic design, but design has a purpose and its design is communicating outward. So if you're looking at a piece of design, all three people who are looking at that design should be interpreting it and understanding it the same way. If they are not, that design was probably bad, because the point of design is to communicate. So when you're making a design or graphic design, you're trying to communicate something to someone. That's why this class is in the communication department, right? It's not in the art department, because design is actually a form of visual communication. Now, three people can look at this one piece of art, and all three of those people can have completely interpretations of that piece of art. That art could be saying different things. They could be feeling something differently about it. They could like it, not like it. You can like or not like a design, but that overall message in that design should be the same to everybody viewing it. So that's the difference and the distinction between design and art. So design is solution-driven. It's based on external constraints. There's usually a set of parameters or something that you have to do in order to create this design a certain way. Either it's printed, so there's certain output specs, or it's digital, like maybe it's going on Instagram, so that would be this size versus something that's going on TikTok, which would be this size, or something that's going on Facebook. So it's based on some form of constraints and external parameters to make it a certain way. Design is useful, clearly understood, and it's motivating. So by motivating, what I mean there is you're most likely trying to get someone, the viewer, to do a certain action after they are looking at your design. So if it's informational, you want them to have learned something. If it's like a CTA, you're trying to get them to do something like click here for more information or purchase something. But there's usually some form of motivation that this design is trying to achieve. Art is interpreted, it's subjective, but it is a tool for design. So again, if we go back to that other slide where the art is being interpreted, three people can look at a piece of art, feel completely differently about it, and have a different emotion and feeling and a different interpretation of that piece. And it's also subjective. So you can, like or not like it. It's definitely driven by taste, and you don't necessarily get the same communication through across the board if you're looking at a piece of art. However, we use art in design because it's visual. So you'll be using things like illustration, and these two things definitely cross over. I just want you to understand the difference. And I feel like it should instill confidence in you if you feel like you're not a good artist or you can't draw. These are things I hear all the time. This isn't an art class, it's a design class. So you can tailor your designs to your own individual skill set and come up with ways to communicate without having to do something elaborate or draw something really detailed. So being a good artist does not necessarily make you a good designer, and vice versa. I know a lot of people who are really good artists that don't have that design skill set. And then I know people who are really good designers who just can't like draw anything to save their life. It just depends on where you're at. But if you build up both of those skills, then of course you're a double threat. Okay, so this is where I get into some fun. Who recognizes this painting? Pretty popular, right? I'm going to stop screen sharing for a minute. If you didn't recognize the Mona Lisa, let me share a poll with you really quick. I'm going to launch it. Take a minute here and answer this quick question. Oops. Yeah, I didn't title my question, I titled my poll. Can you see? Obviously, is she smiling? Answer if you think it's a yes or a no. All right, we almost have everybody. Give you one more second to answer if you'd like to. Wow, I always think this is super interesting. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share these results. So most of you said yes, that you think she's smiling. Last semester, most people said no. Isn't that funny? So this whole thing makes a point, I promise. If I go back to my slides here. So is she smiling? This time our poll was pretty much a yes, a solid yes. I've had semesters where it split completely 50-50. And then I've had semesters where the students said, no, she's not really smiling. So this is a piece of art, right? A very famous piece of art. If I go to my next slide, this is an advertisement. Now, are these women smiling? Yes. Again, because this is design, this is communicating something, this is an ad. It's trying to get you to feel like this chapstick will make you the happiest that you've ever been in your life. So, so there should not be a question here. I shouldn't look at these women and wonder if they're happy or not. The point of this ad is to make me feel like buying this product will also give me that same emotion. So that's the difference here between, hold on, let me make my PowerPoint smaller. Between a piece of art where that emotion might be a little more subjective and everyone interprets it differently, to an ad where there's no doubt that these faces are happy and they're enjoying that product that they're using. So visual communication, that's the name of the game this semester. And I want you to remember 10% of people remember what they hear, 20% of people remember what they read, 80% of people remember what they see and do. And then visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text, and 93% of communication is nonverbal. So I don't remember where I got these percentages from or if they're still accurate, but just remember the spirit of this slide. Basically, what I'm telling you here is that the process of combining text and pictures and having that visual information will help people communicate with you faster. And then when I say 93% of communication is nonverbal, so outside of typography, where we learn to add words and put words in through our design, everything else about that design should be communicating something, from the colors that you use, from the way it's organized to the layout. And I always use an example when it's communication is nonverbal. People will say stuff in different tones. So you can say the same words in different ways and it will mean something else. So if you say, I'm not mad, or I'm not mad, like you know, you can say things and it's like, you're saying these words, but I don't think you're really communicating exactly what those words mean. And design can do the same thing. So regardless of what the words are in your design, everything else associated with that design is also communicating something to your viewer. So creative visual thinking is another phrase that I will use a lot. And basically what creative visual thinking is the process of pulling something out that's an idea and being able to physically create it so that you could show it to somebody. So visual thinking is about taking advantage of your innate ability to see both with our eyes and our mind's eye to discover ideas that are otherwise invisible. Develop those ideas quickly and intuitively, and then share those ideas with people in a way that they understand. So you may not have thought a lot about this actually being a thing, but it's a skill that a lot of people can't do. A lot of people might have an idea in their head, but they can't get it out of their head and actually show you what they mean. And that's why they hire graphic designers. A lot of people can have these ideas, but then actually pulling it out and being able to be like, oh, you want a logo that has an apple and then there's an arrow going through it, and then you want something maybe like a scripty font on the bottom that says apple, and then you're like, is this what you wanted? Well, it's a really messy doodle. I see a lot of you leaning in, it doesn't matter. But like having that skill, or just somebody describing something to you that they're thinking, any idea whatsoever, most people can't take that idea to the next step and turn it into something real, but designers can, and you're going to learn how to do that to a certain extent this semester as well. So the process of creative visual thinking consists of looking. So you'll collect and screen, you're seeing, and you're selecting and clumping things together, and then you're imagining what isn't there, and then you can show it to somebody to make it clear. So it's an intuitive process that most people, like if you feel like you're creative or artistic, you probably are doing these steps just intuitively. But if you really struggle with that creative part of it and coming up with the idea and thinking and turning something into reality, this is a process that you can do to start developing those skills. So this next slide too is about sketching specifically, and sketching is a great way to help process these creative visual thinking skills and strengthening them. I used to, when this class was in person, it was mandatory that everybody had a sketchbook and you had to sketch every project. Star, I just saw that your hand was raised. I'm not sure how long it's been raised. Do you have a question?
No, okay, I raised it when you asked if I've seen the Mona Lisa, so it was a while ago. Don't worry.
All right, no problem. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I used to make sketching for this class mandatory because we're all in our own individual entities now that it's online. I'm not going to force you to have a sketchbook, but I'm telling you right now, it is a great tool. And if you think you're going to jump into this program and just start drawing without processing your ideas, it's going to be so much harder. So get yourself a sketchbook. I actually got this cool brand ambassador sketchbook from CSUB, and it has the first couple of pages, it has blank pages, it has line pages. I love a sketchbook that has these dots. Can you see it? There. Some people really like a grid. Some people just like blank pages. I like these dots because in design, you might make things like grids a lot and sketch out logos, and it just kind of helps you have a little like spatial awareness. So I really like the dots because it's not too disruptive like a whole grid pattern would be, but that's just my own personal preference and a suggestion. You, even if it's a scratch piece of paper or Post-its, I'm telling you, working with your hand will automatically connect to your brain and your ideas will flow faster. So back to this slide, visual exploration. So this is why you need to sketch for the design process. Rapid concept development. The longer I do this and the more that I am in this industry, the faster I can come up with ideas. And sometimes that idea can be the hardest part. I'm at the point now where I can usually figure out how to execute something, but sometimes it's like, okay, but what is the solution to this problem? These are the constraints. How do I solve this problem? And I have to think of my idea first. So rapid concept development, visual exploration, becoming a faster designer, focusing on concept first, then execution second. If you have a great idea, I can probably help you figure out how to execute it technically. But I can't really help you with your project if you don't even know what you're going to create. If you don't know what you're going to create, then I will help you brainstorm and generate ideas. But if you know what you want to create, I can probably either do a tutorial or find a YouTube video and show you how to actually execute that. Communication with clients. So again, it's that like, oh, you're describing something. Okay, is this what you had in mind? No matter how messy it is, sometimes just getting over that hump of making sure you're on the same page and showing somebody something really quickly can really be helpful. So you just sketch it out quickly. Knowing why you're designing. You'd be surprised how many students especially don't really know why they made what they made or how they got there. So you just do something, and then the last bullet point is being able to defend and explain your work. Well, you just create something and you don't really have a thought process between why you did what you did. And now you have to explain to a client or me in a critique why you got there, and you don't really know why. You just kind of made something. So if you don't know why you did it, you can't really defend your work and explain why you did it. And I'll tell you now, we don't have a critique for a couple weeks, but if you can defend it, then it's good with me. If you're like, I don't really know, I just did this, then I'm like, maybe your grade won't be as strong, but I give you the opportunity. And if you defend anything you create with a reason, like that's all part of learning in this course too. So more power to you. All right, so find a creative process. And this is pretty much how I start my creative process, but you can find your own, where I like to do research. Depending on what type of project it is, I like to see what the competition is, what else is out there. Just get a feel for the industry I'm working in. So the cool thing about me working in a design studio is that I don't have one industry. I work for businesses in all different kinds of industries. So I might have something from ag, I might have something that's tech, I might have a restaurant. So when a project comes to me, whether it's branding or a website, I like to do some research and just see what the industry standard is and what else is out there, and just look at other ideas. And then when you're sketching or whether you start to design, there's usually one idea that's pretty obvious, and you got to get that out first and just get it off your plate, get it done and move on. And you don't worry about it being bad. Like literally draw anything. If it's a circle, a square, a triangle, just sometimes you just need to start moving your hand to get the ideas to come. And then sometimes you need to utilize like lists and bullet journaling and words. Sometimes you can't really even form images yet, so just make lists. Start writing down ideas. And then after you get that stuff out, dig deeper for unique ideas and see, is there something I missed? Is there a connection here that could be better? And then evaluate what you have in your sketchbook. Make sure you're understanding the problem that you're solving, because design usually has a solution that you're trying to achieve. And by the time you get all the way down here to this bullet point, sometimes you might have lost track of that completely. And then keep pushing for stronger, more innovative concepts. So a good thing to start doing as you make your way into this course is start analyzing the visual communication you encounter daily. So how do the type and pictures work together? So if you're looking at a sign or you see a poster, just look at it and decide like, oh, are the type and pictures connected? Do they feel like they're cohesive? Do they feel like they're of the same design? Are they disjointed? Just things like that. How can I represent the same thing in a different way? So if you see a design and you don't like it, you're like, think about what would you have done differently or how you could have communicated that. What is the message and is it clear? I don't know how many times I've looked at stuff just in the world and it takes me a minute to even understand what this design is telling me. And if it is really clear and you like it a lot, think about why you like it. How does it make you feel? And I skipped ahead. Do I like it? Why or why not? And then how could this be improved? So that is the introduction to visual communication. I know that was a lot. But that is essentially what we're going to be doing through the course of the semester through these various projects. Does anyone have a question about anything I just talked about? Sounds fun. Yay. Like I said, I think it's super fun, but this is what I do all the time and what I've built my life around. So
Jen, I don't have a question. I just have a comment about what you said about how design really, we see it everywhere. It really makes us feel, think in different ways. When you said about color, some things like things that I sometimes don't think about, but then I was just fixing my house and just go to Costco, get a gallon of soap or detergent. Then I go home and I put it in a shelf and I'm like, it looks so ugly. But in the supermarket, it's so easy to find. Like, oh, I find it right away, but I take it home and I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to put it behind doors. But I love the product. But somebody designed it so we can easily get attracted to it right away in the market. So different design definitely makes us feel a different way, attracts us. We like it, we love it, we don't like it, but it definitely has a huge impact everywhere we see it.
yeah, absolutely. So you're gonna love the color theory week because people just have gut reactions to color, and so it's really fun to analyze that and talk about that as a class. I don't know how many of you have favorite products that you actually hate the packaging, and then you have favorite products where you actually love the packaging, and that might be one of the main reasons you buy that product in the first place. So it's so motivating, design, and it can, you know, repel or attract, or like you mentioned, you actually, once you get that box or package in your house, you're like, oh, I don't like this. But that may not be the purpose. The purpose might be so that you can find it right away in the store and it stands out against all the other products. So that's where solution and your reason for the design comes into play. So the point of every design may not be that this is the most beautiful, most aesthetic design. If you consider something like a stop sign, that has a very, very important specific purpose. And if we tried to change a stop sign to make it cool or visually appealing to our own personal aesthetic, like how bad would that be for people on the road if everywhere in the United States we just changed the stop sign based on the personal style of whoever was designing for that city, right? So design is pretty important. Okay, so we're going to take a 10 to 15 minute break. Oh, I also wanted to add, I know this class is like right at dinner time at the end of the evening. And since we're virtual, like if you're going to eat dinner or grab a snack or whatever during this class, that's totally fine. And if you have to pop up on screen, I don't care if you're like eating or whatever. And then most of the time, you know, if I like cameras to be on sometimes, so I don't feel like I'm talking out to the void, especially if we have critiques and stuff like that. But it's very, you know, it's flexible. So I want you to take a 10-minute break during this. We'll say 10 to 15 minutes. But during this time too, I want you to take whatever you have available to draw on. And I want you to draw something super simple. So I'm going to use my tablet. I like to, so I can send it directly onto my computer and do this lesson. So after this break, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms, let you talk amongst yourselves. I want you to share these sketches and a few things. And then I'll get into the lesson, which will go pretty fast. And then we'll be done for today and you can all get super excited about next week. But yeah, so take a break, draw something super simple. If their last semester, I told everyone to draw like a fruit or something, because I thought like you could draw an apple or grapes or literal circles if you want to, but anything, if you want it to be a cat, if you want it to be a tree, most people have a little something that they can draw pretty quickly. It could be a happy face. Just make sure that it's like an enclosed object. Does that make sense? Does anyone have questions about what I mean by like an actual object? So like, don't do something that you can't fill color into, and not like a whole drawing, just one solid little object, whether it's an apple, a heart, a smiley face, a Christmas tree. I'm trying to think of doodles I can do in like a minute. Just do that on your paper. I'm going to give us like 15 minutes. If you also need to take a little break, that's fine too. And then at, let's see, around 6:35, we're going to come back. And all right, welcome back. Did you get to know some of your classmates? Yeah, good. So we'll try to do that at least once a session so you can get to know each other and form some connection. So it's not just this weird void we're speaking into. So everybody got your sketches done? If you have the software on your computer and you would like to do this along with me, you are more than welcome to. If not, again, I will post this and you can rewatch it as many times as you want to, but we're going to jump into your first lesson of how to draw something in Illustrator. The main thing I want you to learn by watching this is that everything can be drawn by breaking it down into simple shapes, and it's easier than you probably think it is, okay? So I've done this assignment in the past with one specific illustration that everybody had to copy, and they would turn out with various like skill sets, and they'd be kind of across the board, and it was super detailed and it was taking people a lot of time. So then last semester I did it this way, where it's a little more free, where you can start with your own sketch, and some people still made it really hard on themselves. So don't make this hard on yourself. If you're watching me do it, you can always adapt it and try again. So yeah, so what I heard in those breakout rooms, it was fun to get to hear some more information about all of you. So please, please, please fill out your survey so that you can tell me more about yourself. And what's really fun about this class is that, so we'll have assignments, like what I'm about to show you is what I consider an assignment, where you're really just following steps. And there's not a lot of creative to it. It's mostly to learn a technical skill. So you're following these steps so you can learn a technical skill. But then we'll have projects where you really get to make it your own and use your own creativity and have a lot of freedom with it. And it's always fun. I get to learn a lot about you through these projects and what you like and dislike and who you are as an artist and a designer, because you can infuse a lot of your own meaning into it. And I've had students that are involved in different things, and they're like, so from the very first project on, I'll start to see like a theme or a pattern in their subject matter and content, and they'll design each project to their own personal interest. And if you are that kind of person, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So you'll see as we go on how you can do that with these projects. So I will screen share here. And I have Adobe Illustrator opened. Oops. So what I just did was I was trying to move my Zoom thing, and I clicked on the artboard and hit the slider. So it is no longer in the center of my screen. Here is your first quick tip. If you get the hand tool in this toolbar and you double click it, it brings your artboard right back to the center. So
Jen, I have a quick question. So I just opened up Adobe Illustrator and it's saying start a new file fast. Do we just do a 4-letter postcard web page, or?
let me start there. So
Okay.
I already have my document open, but if you have your document closed, this. Here's everything I worked on today that I didn't close. So you have Adobe Illustrator, it'll pop up with new file. And then you can start a new document. If you didn't click new file, you can also go file new up there at the top. And you can just do this project on an 8.5 by 11 document. And you'll want to make sure over here in the preset details that you have it set to inches. A lot of times I will get students not paying attention to what it is, and they will make a document that's 8.5 by 11 pixels. And when they upload it to Canvas, it is super tiny and they can't figure out why. So the great thing though about Illustrator, and we'll get into that more as we learn about more terminology and programs, is that it's a vector-based program. So what you're creating in this program is infinitely scalable to big to small. So it's not pixel-based, so you can just change your artboard size and then scale your design up. So go 8.5 by 11. You want to make sure orientation really doesn't matter for this project. So landscape, portrait, whatever you prefer, and then inches. You don't have to worry about any of these other settings. We will work on these more later. You can make sure your raster effects is set to 300, and that will make sure it's a high resolution, just as if you were going to print it out on a piece of paper. And then you just hit create. And up here, they have a lot of presets. So mobile, web, print, it has these file sizes set for you, and you can explore those and you'll see some, you might even get ideas of what you can make and things like that. But you'll see here, my recent 8.5 by 11 is pretty common. I have a 5 by 7 postcard popping up here. These are just the last few things that I made. This is the size of the 4 by 5 Illustrator square. And then I have 8.5 by 11. So I just hit create. And then here is my new artboard for that document. And I want to put my sketch. So I already sent my sketch from my iPad to my computer with AirDrop. If you sketched on a piece of paper, you can just take a picture of it and send it to your computer or email it to yourself. The sketch really doesn't matter how you get it there, as long as you can pull it over onto your artboard in some way. Go to my Finder window. So I have the drawing lesson here. I drew this cat head. I didn't even draw the whole cat, just drew the head. That's all you need, just something super simple. So as I'm doing this, if you think you made yours too complicated, feel free to reevaluate. And because I'm on a Mac, I just dropped most of my things over. And I just went from this Finder window where my sketch was saved, and I dragged it over to my artboard, and now it's here. And you'll see there's an X in between it like this, because it's telling me that this is a JPEG that I dropped into my artboard. If you need to get this onto your computer and you cannot drag and drop, you can also go to File, Place, and then you navigate to where your file is saved, and you can select it and place it, and see how it's, see the little indicator that I'm going to place that JPEG, but I only need one. So I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to show my layers here. So if you don't see something on the side that says layers, and there's different ways you can set up your workspace in Illustrator. So I have I'm more of like a floating panels person, where I'm really kind of messy, and I'll have my swatches over here and my tools over here. And every once in a while, I like to, you can see my gradient palette. This is what's floating out over here. And every once in a while, it's kind of like I need to do the sweep, and I'll like organize my entire workspace so that everything is like filed in here. But a lot of times I'll just like have stuff freely floating around based on the tool that I'm actively working with. So you can decide, and you can do these different views and arrange your workspace. If you can't find something, like if you're watching one of my tutorials and you hear me say, go to your layers palette. Now a palette is what I will call these individual windows that do different things. And it's under window, layers, and see how that check mark is next to it? That means it's open. If I unclick it, it just went away. But if I go window, layers, it'll put it right back. And I like to keep it under properties and filed with these things. If you ever can't find something, it's either in window, or if it's a tool in your toolbar, it's probably just hidden behind another tool. So if you click that little triangle in the bottom corner of your tools, it'll show you more tools. And then here shows you everything. So you can't delete your tools. You cannot delete your options and your windows. You can just hide them, and you just have to go select them and have them pop back up. So the first thing I'm going to do is move this JPEG. You can see it's on what's called layer 1, and you can double click and rename these. So I'm just going to rename it sketch, so for clarity, so that you can see. To be perfectly honest, normally when I'm working, I'm a messy designer. I don't name my layers. I don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing, and I don't anticipate anyone else having to come in and look at my files and be like, oh, she just has layer 1 through 20 here, and it's really messy. All right, so I'm going to scale this down just a little bit. It's a little bit big. It doesn't matter that it's going off the artboard. I'm going to scale it and center it here, and then I'm going to lock it. Now you can actually, okay, let me move you all to the top where you won't be in the way. You can set a template layer and it'll automatically kind of fade your sketch. And I believe that is here. So if I hit template, see how it just lightens my sketch a little bit, and it's showing me that this is now a template layer. And then down here, I'm going to add a new layer on top of that. So see where I just hit the plus sign at the bottom of my layers palette, and then a new layer went on top, and it's called layer 2. So now I'm going to look at the sketch, and I'm going to analyze these simple shapes, and I'm going to essentially color it in and draw a full color version of this cat. So what does a cat consist of? It's a circle and triangles, essentially. So make sure you know, like, everything can be drawn in simple shapes, and you can combine them and you can adjust them. We will get into using this pin tool, which I really like, where you click and drag and you can draw things like this and be really precise with it. And I could draw this full cat like this. You can see I'm not really toggling these as I go around. Let me change the color on that. So I don't have my swatches open, window swatches. And I'm just going to change the inside of this so you can see. And but I could theoretically click and drag and draw this whole cat. That was really messy because I just did these points. Or I could get a brush and I could try to trace this whole thing. But what I want you to try to do in this exercise is to use the shape tools here and pick a couple shapes that you can use to create your illustration that you drew. So mine is a cat. I'm going to start by making a circle. And I'm not going to fill in the color just yet because I want to see what I'm drawing behind it. Now, I know I saw one sketch and it was like a dum-dum, like a lollipop. So that would be a circle. And then think about, again, you want that like band across it. So would it be a circle and a rectangle? Possibly, but it's rounded, right? So you can change these shapes once you create them. I'm going to zoom in here. And you'll see when you make shapes, they have points. So this black arrow that I just clicked on lets me move this entire shape. And it'll highlight what I have selected. And I can grab both of these shapes by holding down Shift on my keyboard and clicking with my other hand, clicking this shape too. So now I have both of those grabbed. And then I can go over here to my align and I can center them up so that they're centered together. And then say I want this to look more like that rounded edge. I click on it. See these little circles within the rectangle? I can grab these circles and I can bring them in and around these corners. And then decide how I want that to fit. So I currently have two shapes that I'm going to turn into one shape. I'm going to do that with this cat too. So if you need a triangle, you get the star tool. That might be a little weird at first, but see, I just made a star. And I did that by clicking. So I'm clicking, I'm leaving my finger down. My finger has not lifted up from my mouse button. And now I'm dragging, and as I drag, that star gets bigger or smaller. So I'm actually going out and in with my mouse when you see it getting bigger and smaller. If I don't want it, see how it's turning every which way? If I don't want it to do that, I hold down shift, and then it only expands and contracts one direction. Now, I want a triangle, right? I don't want a 5-pointed star. So on the keyboard, I still have my finger pressing down. I have not released my finger after I clicked and dragged the star shape. And I use the arrow keys, and I'm going down points. And now it's a triangle. And then I do not have to create this again. I can click on it with this black arrow, and I can hold shift and command option. If you're on a PC, it's control, someone, PC users help me out here. Alt,
Control C,
control C.
and then
You can also
control.
alt and drag.
Yeah, so so my hand is still pressed down on the mouse. And I have command and option held down on my keyboard, and I haven't released it yet, but see that double arrow? It's the white and the black arrow. It's showing me that it's going to duplicate that. So then when I pick up my mouse, I have 2 triangles now. You can also just get the triangle tool again and then try to like size it the same way, but I want my cat ears to be the exact same size. So I'm just going to duplicate that first one I made. And then with this, I have a bounding box on it. So you can use these tools like scale and rotate, or if you just have your selection arrow, you can use these edges and rotate and scale and just decide how you want that to look. So I'm going to make one ear, and then if I was doing this just really fast by myself, I would just go, I have it selected, I'd hit Command C and Command V, and I would just copy it. Or I would, instead of duplicating, I'd press down, select it, Option, Alt, drag it, and then go Object, Transform, Reflect, and just flip it. Oops, that's scale. So that it mirrors that other one, and I don't have to worry about adjusting it back and forth like this. So now I have 2 shapes here. Let's delete this star so it's not confusing. You'll see I'm going to draw, I'll draw this one while I draw this one. So this is 3 shapes, and this is 2 shapes. Both of these things I want to be one solid object. Now I could just color these all in the same color. Get rid of that outline, which is down here in tools, or you can have your color palette open. I can color them both in gray. And then when I unclick, it does look like it's one solid object. But what I want you to explore and get comfortable with is the Pathfinder tool, which is right here. So it looks like this. And the Pathfinder is a great way to divide and unite objects. So, and the reason we want to be able to do that is to give things one color and be able to use things like gradients. Lost my swatches again. So I'm going to take off the outlines. And again, when I unclick this, it looks like one object, but it's actually 2. So if I have both of these selected, and you'll see I just clicked and dragged to grab those, and I can do the same thing here. So I have these 2 things selected. I go to Pathfinder, and I hit this Unite, and now it's one shape. And I could do the same thing with this cat. Unite, now it's one shape. Now I still want to see my drawing under that. So then what I usually do is just change my color to outline while I'm drawing the rest of my object. And I'm going to make it real simple. I'm going to make 2 eyes. I'm going to go back to my triangle tool, and I'm going to make a little nose. And I'm going to rotate that nose. And then I'm going to get the pen tool. Let's see, let's make this nose, since it's on the top, I'm going to go ahead and color it in. I will make it pink. So you have swatches, and then if you want to change the colors of those swatches, you can go to your color palette and slide the RGB, or you can do CMYK, and we'll get into color later. But for now, if you just want to work within the swatches and like give it a hot pink nose, or if you want to just slide these around till you like the color, feel free to do that. It doesn't matter what color you make these things for right now. And then I'm going to add a little detail. So let's see. So far I have my cat, 2 eyes, and a nose. It's pretty simple. I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm going to add that line detail. And then I'm going to click on that nose, and I did that with a key command, but you can also click on something, object, arrange, and bring things forward and backward. You can also use as many layers as you want. So if you want to keep, like you have a part of your design that is the detail, like the face, you can put that on a whole other layer, or you can use these arrows and lock and unlock things. So that's really just workflow and what you like to do. So I have this cute cat. I don't think the mouth is distinctive enough, so I'm going to go to properties and just bump up that stroke width a little bit so it's a little bit thicker line. And then I'm also going to change, let's see, where are those properties again? Window, stroke, so I have more options, and I'm going to change those to rounded edges. I just think it looks friendlier. And then I think the nose looks a bit harsh too, so I'm going to expand it. I'm going to click on the selection arrow so I can see the different points and see how those 3 circles pop up. I'm going to come in and I'm just going to round those corners of the nose by pulling in those points. That way it looks a little bit softer. And then I'm going to get the circle again. Give my cat some little highlights on its eyes, make it look nice and cute. And then I'm going to do some pink inside and fill in the ears. So I made another smaller triangle. I'm going to change the color just for placement so it's easier to see. Rotate this in and just align this till I'm happy with how it's filling in that ear. Same thing over here. And at this point, this cat's pretty solid. So if it's bothering you, you can also turn off your template.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
How can we make curved lines? Like, for example, like whiskers? I mean, I know they're not super curved, but like slightly.
Yeah, so I would do that. So there's a couple things you can do. And everything that I tell you, there's probably 10 different ways to do it. So I'll always tell you like the fastest, easiest way that I think of. You can get this pen tool and you click. And then so the pen tool, you're making points. And when you click and hold down and toggle that, it starts to curve the line. So see how the toggle comes up? So each time, and see, so right now my color is a fill instead of an outline. So that's why it looks like that, because it wants to fill it. I just click over here and then that actually makes it an outline instead. And then I can make it black. And the thing to remember too is you don't have to draw things twice if they're made of the same shape. So if I wanted to take these whiskers and then just make 3 more and then duplicate them, I could do that as well.
And then you would just press shift to combine the 3?
Yes, so I grabbed all of these together and I like as if I was going to move them, but then I hold down Command Option and that lets me drag them. And then you can group them together, Command G, or Object Group and Ungroup if you want to keep those together. If you're making another curve shape too, you could always, depending on how precise you want it to be, you could make an ellipse, and then you can get these scissors and you could cut it and then delete the other half. So that's why I say there's like a couple different ways to do everything. It just depends on the look you want and how precise you are. And just like I was mentioning here, this pen tool is a really great tool to get comfortable with, and it's going to give you a lot of precision and a lot of control the better you get at it. So if I didn't want to make my cat out of 2 triangles and a circle, and I really, like, this was really important for me to follow this line exactly, then I would use this pen tool and I would start at a point and I would click and I would follow these lines. See how this sketch isn't exactly straight? And it gives me all of that control. And then I click here on the toggle again and it takes off. So this is, takes off the curve. And so see, you do have the ability and the control to copy something exactly if you get really comfortable with the pen tool. Let me bump up this line so you can see. See how it pretty much follows that? But for now, I want you to keep it simple. So if I go back to my cat, I am going to do cute little pink inside the ears, but I want you to add and experiment with gradients in some ways. So I'm going to get my gradient, and I like to, this is where I like to start popping out my palettes because I'm changing the colors and using the swatches. So if you want to save a color that you've mixed, pull it down into your swatches. And I want those ears to be pink, but then fade down into the gray. So I'm going to pull the pink into this gradient down here. And it automatically does a gradient in black and white. So if you don't want, like I don't want the white in here, I just pull it down. So what I did is clicked on it and I pulled it down. I do want, what color is this cat? This cat is this gray. So I'm going to grab this gray and I'm going to pull it down into my gradient and I'm going to pull that black away. Oops, I did the wrong thing. If that happens, you just hit Command Z, you undo. So I want to make sure I have that ear selected. Okay, it's that gray. I just forgot what color gray it was. Pull that in, pull that down. Now you can see the gradient's not going the right direction that I want it to go. So then I get the gradient tool and see how the pink is here and the gray is here. Now that I have the gradient tool selected, I can click up here and I can pull the gradient this way. And just get it lined up how I want. And then I can go back to this palette and bring these closer and change the level of that fade. So if I want like a real gradual fade into the pink ears, I can move the colors farther apart and move the center slider forward and back. But if I want it to be a quicker transition from gray to pink, then I can adjust it accordingly. So just play around with that. You can also slide it over here and do the same thing. And then, so ideally, I don't want, see this line? I don't want that line. I want it to look like it's really fading into each other. So I want it to be, I may not have the right, see, I don't think I picked the right gray after all. I'm going to move this gray over next to this pink so I don't confuse it. So now if I pull this gray down, now that's doing more of what I want. That's what I was going for. So it just looks like it goes from that gray into that pink shape. And then I can just eyedrop and it'll select it, but then I have to do the adjusting all over again. So even though I made both of those shapes already, I'm just going to duplicate this shape and then reflect it so that I don't have to realign my whole gradient. And then move it back here where I want it. And then there you have it. There's my cute little cat. It's got the gradient. I combined the shapes. If I was doing this one, since this is like a sucker is like a hard plastic, it might be a little bit shiny. So then I could add a gradient here, and I put in this pink color. And maybe I want to do more of like a highlight. And I did a radial, but it was the wrong direction. And then, so I have a radial gradient going on, but really, if you're thinking about how an object catches light, it won't always be exactly in the center. So that's where you get this gradient tool again, and you can have it catch the light from the corner. And then you could do a rectangle. And move this forward. And then if you really wanted to get into it, you can add lines for extra detail. Like if you want this line. Just decide what you want the object to look like and kind of play around with it like that. But see how easy it is to create depth and start making something that was a super basic shape, and then just adding a little dimension and turning it into something that looks like an actual drawing, like a digital drawing that you did. So that's all I want you to do. Did anyone want to tell me like some of their objects that they're not sure how to execute, or do you have any questions?
I have a quick question. How did you move the order? Like, was there a certain like keys that you clicked or something?
Oh, for which, sorry, when I was moving which thing? Let me
The
see.
lollipop, so the stick of the lollipop, you move something
Oh yeah,
backwards
so
or forward.
I undo. So I get the selection arrow because I didn't want the stick is on the top right now, and I want this to be in the front. So there are key commands for it, and it's a shift command and it's brackets. So the brackets you can move things forward and backwards with, but you can also click on something, go to object, arrange, and send things forward and back. I am really quick with the key commands just because I do it all the time. So I'll try to make sure I say that out loud, what I'm doing. There is a document for shortcuts, and I believe it is. It's not in here. I have it somewhere. It might be in the module for week. If I go to the class calendar. I think it's in week 3, but I'll find a new one too because they're changed. Yes, and if you are a Windows user, I'm gonna say everything in Mac, but I will try to say it both ways. And it's really just an easy fix. It's a difference between saying like Alt or Option, but it's basically the same thing. So I'll post a new key command chart, and I always call the key commands out when I'm working. So when I set this assignment, I will post this video again in the assignment, and then I'm going to post the tutorial that I made last year that was more complicated. So if you want to watch those, but keep it super simple. I don't know what some of you drew, but see if you can break it down into 2 or 3 simple shapes and combine those shapes, and then add the details as you see fit. And then when you're done, just save it as a PDF and upload it to assignment 1. And assignments, again, assignments are hardly ever worth more than 10 points. So if at any point there are tears or absolute frustration, stop, email me. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's just for practice. When we get into projects, that's where you should be putting all your creative energy and extensive time into making the project what you want. Did I make that look too easy or too hard? Oh, thank you. So to turn it into a PDF, so then I'm ready to turn, oops, I'm not screen sharing. Hold on. To turn this into a PDF, I'm just going to delete my sketch layer because I do not need it. So I'm just going to delete that layer. I'm going to delete this. I just have my cute little cat face centered on this document, and I go to File. Now, saving a PDF is different between InDesign and Illustrator, and you'll see that in a couple weeks. But for this, you go File, Save As, and down here under Format, you just select PDF, and you would name it. I always say it in the assignment. I think I like you to do last name, first name, and then like assignment 1. I don't know if I called it out in this assignment, but Canvas is good about filing everything under who you are, but when I download them, I like your names to be on them so that I can keep track. So I'll just do Cordova _ Jennifer 1 and save as PDF. You'll get these options. You can just do high quality. Unless you're drawing something super, super elaborate, it shouldn't be a huge file size. If you do take it upon yourself to draw something super elaborate, then good for you, but you might want to save it as smallest file size, but your editing capabilities will change. So you can actually open up PDFs in Illustrator and go back and fix them unless you change to like smallest or press quality or compress your file in some way. So just select high quality and then you save it and then you're done. And now you have this PDF file and that's what you upload into Canvas. So exporting, there's really no difference. You can go to File, Export, and Export As, and you'll have a couple other options. The main difference, so in Illustrator, Export as PDF actually isn't an option, but in InDesign, that's how you make a PDF. You export as a PDF. So in Illustrator, if you're exporting, that means that you're converting the file in some way. So if you're exporting as a JPEG or a PNG, you will keep your AI file or your Illustrator file, and it just exports a new file for you. If you're saving as a PDF, it's still editable. It's still a working file in Illustrator, but that's how it's saving your entire document. So if you're exporting, that's turning it into a new file that you can't go back and open in Illustrator and then edit. So that's it. So this week, all I want you to do is read through all the stuff in the modules. I will clip this video down and put it into the assignment, just this part, and then I'll upload a supplemental video on Illustrator for you as well. But all you have to do is whatever you sketched, I want you to turn it into an illustration, and then you upload it, and that's your assignment for the week. And the next week we'll get into our first project, and I'm going to throw you right back in there, and you're going to be designing a poster, and it's going to be really fun. So that's it. If you have questions for me, I will still stick around. I should state too, I always just do office hours right after class. We hardly ever go up to the full amount of class time unless it's a critique day where we're getting through a lot of projects. So I always am available right after class if you have questions or need one-on-one help. And then if it ever doesn't work out for you that this is a good time to stay and have questions, just email me and we'll set up a one-on-one. All right. So it's nice to meet everybody, and I'm looking forward to the semester and fill out your surveys.